Hey guys, Metal Jesus here, and it is time for another travel video. This time I'm going to be hopping on a plane and heading to Milwaukee, Wisconsin for the Midwest Gaming Classic Expo. And I am very excited for this trip for two reasons really. One, I've never been to that part of the United States, and I've heard very good things about this expo. A lot of people compare this expo in size and quality to the standard, which is the Portland Retro Expo. So I'm very excited to check this one out. And what's really important for me is to show up a couple days early to not just go to the expo, but also experience the city and the culture and the people. And so in this video, we're going to check out some of the sites in Milwaukee. We're going to check out a local gaming store. We're also going to visit a local record store. And of course, I'm going to share the entire expo with you. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you everything I picked up. Now, for those of you that don't know, Milwaukee is actually pretty far from Seattle. It is almost 2,000 miles away. And so because of that, it takes pretty much most of a day for me to get there, especially with this trip because there is a layover in Minneapolis and there is a 2-hour time difference. So I leave Seattle and I basically arrive in Milwaukee at night. And as I go to get my rental car, well, sitting there waiting for me is John Riggs. Because it's so late, we didn't have time to do much on the first day, so we're gonna call it a night.
We just got here.
What's up?
We just got here. Haven't even unpacked yet.
I know.
Haven't got your car yet.
Wake up the next morning to cold and cloudy skies. I was surprised to learn that actually Milwaukee is currently, at least as of the time of making this video, it was colder than Seattle. We were freezing, but we were very excited to kind of just walk around and take in the city. Now, I'll admit I know almost nothing about Milwaukee or really Wisconsin. The only thing I really know is kind of what I've learned from television, and that really comes from That 70s Show, and then also Happy Days. I used to watch that show as a kid, also Laverne and Shirley. And so for the first couple hours, we kind of just drove around getting a sense of the city and kind of, I don't know, our bearings as to where we were. Now, we were mostly in the downtown section, and I have to say, actually, it's a really nice looking city. I mean, we drove around and saw some really cool houses. They're massive in size. Most of them are brick, probably been there for, I don't know, forever as far as I know. But after a while, we got wind that there is a game store in the area that we should check out. So we hopped over to Mega Media Exchange. And as you can see here, it is it's a game store, but it's also a bunch of pop culture stuff as well. So yes, they have a lot of games in here and actually a decent selection, both of old and new. And there was a small arcade section in the back, but then they also had a bunch of pop culture stuff like Funko Pops. They had movies. They had a bunch of that sort of stuff. So we didn't really hang out here very long. I actually did buy one game from here, but I'll show you that at the end. But again, we're going to a retro gaming expo, so we don't really need to spend a lot of time here. Instead, actually, I was kind of excited to do a little bit of music hunting. We heard that very close to here, there is actually a really decent little mom and pop record store. And so we hopped over to Bullseye Records, and yeah, this is definitely a little hole in the wall, but these are my favorite kind of record stores where you have no idea what they're going to have in here. And they actually had a pretty decent little metal section here. I did spot an album I don't own, and that is Kiss Unplugged. So this has become one of the more collectible, newer releases from Kiss. And I think the reason why is that they just didn't make very many of these. This album regularly goes for $150, and that's what they had it here. I passed it up, though. I passed it up because I just didn't want to have to ship it home. But it is one that I'm kind of like, wow, that's what I need for the collection. So I'm going to keep my eye out for it here in Seattle. But again, it was neat to see in the store. Later on in the afternoon, we all met up at the Milwaukee Public Market, and this felt very familiar to me because it feels very much like the Seattle Pike Place Market if you've ever been there. And as you can see by this footage, it's very cozy and filled with a bunch of independent local vendors. That's what's really fun about it. And it didn't take me long to find the group. Of course, I spotted John Riggs first because he's like a tower over there. But also, as you see, we met up with Kelsey Lewin and also Adam Korlick. And this place was legit. As you can see by these photos here, they had great produce that was grown locally, as well as amazing desserts. They also had this place that had these really exotic spices and just a ton more. I really dig this place, but that's going to be it for day one. The next morning, Friday, things are starting to amp up a little bit. People are starting to fly in, more people are starting to show up, and we meet with a group of dudes that were following Adam around, and we decided basically to go and try to find the bronze Fonz statue. So they have Fonzie sitting somewhere on a bridge, and it was our mission to go try to find him. And I'm a big fan of walking tours of cities. I like getting out there and just wandering around a city, taking it all in, especially a town like this, where they have a really pretty river going through it here. There's lots of really interesting buildings to check out, and just getting out for a couple hours is always a lot of fun. Later that evening, we decided to check out a local arcade called Up Down, and I'm so glad we did because I love seeing this. So as you see here, it's a mix of a bar and an arcade. It has a couple different levels, and it was packed full of people. And what blows me away about this is that not that long ago, probably 20 years ago, everyone was saying that arcades were dying, and yet here we are, and they're alive and well. And so it just warms my heart that so many people are gathering in places like this, hanging out, meeting, playing games, drinking, talking. It's just awesome. And so this place did not disappoint. And so we hung out here for a couple hours, had a couple drinks, and had a really good time. But as you know, we're going to an expo. And so we're going to get all of this and more. So we decided to call it an early night and prepare for the next day, the main event. All right, it is Saturday, and I am at the Wisconsin Center. I have no idea what to expect, but I love walking in these places, and this one did not disappoint. As you see walking through here, the very first floor was the vendors, and it was jam-packed. It was wall to wall with just so many great vendors. A couple highlights here. So first off, check out this Doom N64. This is a customized N64, and they went all out on this thing. It was actually for sale, and I have to admit, I'm tempted. I would love to own it. Is it expensive? Yes, and rightfully so, because they put a ton of work into it, but man, did I think this was cool. Next up, check out this extremely rare NBA Elite 11 PS3. So this is an official release here. I believe they only did 5 of them. I've never seen this before. This is probably one of the most rare things on the floor that I saw all weekend. This was very neat to see. Yeah, just an amazing version of this. I thought this is pretty cool. Speaking of some other things that are pretty rare and unusual, check out these original NES prototypes. So this guy had them in his backpack. He was actually one of the vendors, he had a booth, and he collects prototypes. And so he brought these. He was actually going to share these with Kelsey. I think she might have dumped them. I'm not entirely sure, but he had them. He collects them, brought them to the show. Also, he had some PSP prototypes, which I thought was pretty neat. So again, something you typically just don't see. Now, I don't think these were for sale. They were brought here to show. I really dug this booth that was over by the main doors. It was full of Japanese imports. You typically do not see this type of thing at expos. You'll typically get a vendor that has, some imports, one or two different systems, but man, this booth had everything. It just had PSP, PS2, Dreamcast, Famicom, Super Famicom. It just went on and on and on. I was like blown away. I think the biggest challenge for me when I see a booth like this is that I just don't know what to pick up. I haven't done my research, and so sometimes it's kind of hard to tell, what I will actually be able to play. Obviously I have systems to play them, but I don't know which ones are completely in Japanese and which ones I can actually kind of figure out. But again, very cool. If you do your homework, this would be a very cool booth. Check this out. So I walked by this booth that had all of this Vectrex stuff here, and I noticed that this guy was also selling the multi-cart that I actually own. And it turns out that he's the guy who made it. I was like, oh my God, this is like an amazing coincidence here that he makes the multi-cart that I and a lot of other people own. And what's great is he also makes a bunch of aftermarket overlays that you can buy from him to basically put on your Vectrex for the games that you want to play. And so that was just very cool to see, because if you know about the Vectrex, you know that you want those overlays because it's part of the whole experience of it. It basically adds color as well as text to it. It makes it feel just more complete. And a lot of us don't have very many overlays. I'm one of those. So I actually did pick up a pack of them here, and yeah, that was awesome to see. I thought this is pretty funny. A table had this listed there for $10,000. A one-of-a-kind Bobby variant here. They're making fun of Wada, of course, gave this a score of 9.8. Smells like pee. So collectible. Also, at this point, I want to give a huge shout out to another YouTuber who was helping me shoot footage pretty much all weekend long. His name is Chris, and he runs a YouTube channel called Game Dad. I'm going to put a link down to the video description below. Super cool dude. Got to meet him for the very first time. I just asked him if he would be willing to shoot footage of me this weekend. So that was super nice of him. If you haven't checked out his channel, please do so. He's an awesome guy. Now, there was one thing that I was a little disappointed with the vendor floor, and that is many of these tables were, for some reason, cash only. Now, I've ran into this in the past, but for some reason, this expo, again, just had a lot of people that, for whatever reason, were trying to only get cash. And, you know, I get it. They probably are just trying not to have to pay taxes. But I gotta tell you, as a customer, it's incredibly annoying spending some time at a table, looking around, finding a stack of games, walking up there and being told, oh, sorry, we only take cash. And you guys know, a lot of these games and a lot of these systems are going up in price. And so to expect people to be walking around with hundreds of dollars in cash, maybe thousands of dollars in cash, I just think is a little, I don't know, it's unrealistic. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the second floor where there is some really cool stuff. The first room I wanna show you is this room dedicated to these modders or hackers who basically take consoles and they make them portable. This blew my mind. This was so cool. I mean, I've seen some of these on YouTube, but to have them all here was amazing. Especially this world's smallest portable Nintendo 64. That is amazing. And what was great about this is that they were all working, and the person who actually did the modifications was sitting there at the table so you could ask them all sorts of questions. This was a really cool surprise. Next up was a room that was dedicated to NES homebrews, and this was really fun. This was a great way to highlight some of those people that are making brand new games for the classic NES. Here's another room that I just stumbled into. As you see, there are a bunch of systems set up for you to just walk up and play some games. I love this section over here where they have a bunch of Steel Battalion systems all networked together, so people can just walk up and play this amazing game as it was designed to be played. And then over on this wall here was this dude just jamming on guitar. This guy was amazing. And then check this out, they have a bunch of older iMacs set up running Quake networked. So you can sit down there and play network Quake, but I thought it was really interesting because they're on Macs, something that most people don't really associate with gaming. And so now let's go ahead and go up to the third floor. So like I said, this place is massive, and up here is where they have all of the free-to-play games. So they have all of these sections right here in the front where it's mostly older computers, some consoles, things like that. And anybody can walk up at any point, grab a controller, and just play whatever you want, which is really fun. And then over here, they have an entire arcade section set up. And again, everything is set to free to play. And then mixed into all of this are a bunch of pinball machines. Again, all of them set to free to play. Now, I did notice that one of the cool highlights here was a brand new Rush pinball game. I'd never seen this before. I don't know if it's being just announced here or maybe it's just being highlighted for the first time. But as you see, they had a bunch of them set up, and this was really cool. And I really like how they organized this expo a lot. The first floor being sort of the main floor with all the vendors and things like that. The second floor has a lot of the specialized rooms where you could get cosplay or just all sorts of, specific things that you're looking for. And then the third floor is all about just walking up and playing games, both on computer, consoles, and pinball. But that wasn't all. Later on that evening, they also had a couple bands playing. I thought this was really cool. They had the dude who actually did the motion capture for Mortal Kombat. He was rocking out, doing some covers and I think some original songs. And then you had this all original band called Lords of the Trident. And unfortunately, I missed their performance, but the singer came up to me later on that evening and handed me the album on CD. Took it home, blew my mind. They're awesome too. There was also a big YouTuber panel where we took your questions, and as you can see here, we packed the room. That was so much fun. Now it's funny because people often ask me, does it rain a lot in Seattle? And the reality is actually not really as much as other cities, and here's proof, because as we were walking from our hotel to the expo, look at this rain. It looks like a monsoon. It looks absolutely crazy. I was blown away. Trust me when I say that it rarely rains this hard in Seattle. We usually get like a mist, just a little cloud cover, a little bit of a mist, nothing like this. So I thought this was hilarious that I go all the way to Milwaukee to just get poured on. And so that's kind of an overview of my trip to Milwaukee and the Midwest Gaming Classic Expo. I had a fantastic time, but we got to get back to Seattle because I got to show you what I picked up. Starting with this massive release here. So Premium Edition Games had a table at the expo, and on that table, the thing that really caught my eye was this right here. This is their deluxe edition of a great Metroidvania style game called A Robot Named Fight. If you're unfamiliar with this game, I think Reggie and I covered this a couple months back when he was talking about it. Basically, it is a love letter to Super Metroid. However, it is all roguelike. So it's randomized every time you play it. And it's very cool to see this mega deluxe edition of this. I think the highlight has to be the strategy guide here. So first of all, it's really substantial. Like it's an actual book. And it has this kind of soft cover to it with some of these foil highlights. Also notice the spine there is also foil, I guess is what they call that. So really high quality. You open it up and it's all full color. So yeah, that's definitely really cool for fans of this game. Next up is something I was really happy to find. That is a Xbox 360 faceplate. So they released a ton of these officially licensed faceplates for the Xbox 360. This is the Final Fantasy 12 one here. And eventually I would like to do a video on them. Now, there are a surprisingly high amount of these. I would guess there's probably 100, 200 of them or something like that. Some of them are kind of common. Some of them are a little bit collectible. So I got a ways to go. I think I've only got probably 10 or 15 of them so far, but it's something I'm always on the lookout for. Next up is an amazing donation that I got from one of my admins on Discord. His name's Shadowist on there, and he gave me a brand new copy of Pierce Solar on the Dreamcast. This is an all-original, old-school RPG that I believe originally came out on the Genesis, but then they ported it over to the Dreamcast. I didn't have this in my collection, and man, this is such a cool gift. So thank you so much, man. I mentioned that NES homebrew room, and in there I met the guy who made Space Raft. And it turns out that he is in a real band called Space Raft. They have the album right there. And to celebrate that, they made an original homebrew NES game about their band and going on tour. So of course I had to pick up a copy of that. I was walking by this booth admiring all of this really unique looking walnut artwork here. All this pop culture stuff. I thought this was really cool. I'd never seen this before. And the guy running this table said he's got this gift for me, and he pulls out from underneath the table this original take on my official Metal Jesus logo doing walnut art. And so I thought this was very cool, very unique. I've never seen anything like it, and it now hangs in my game room. So thank you very much. If you guys are interested in checking out some of their walnut art, I have to be careful when I say that. They have an Etsy store, and I'll link to it down in the video description below. And remember that vendor table that had the Doom N64 on it? Well, I guess they also do a bunch of custom work for a bunch of other systems, including the Game Boy Advance. And so on the way out the door, they ran over and handed me this. It's their own version of the GBA consolizer called the GB HD Advance. Now, admittedly, I haven't had time to mess around with this. I just got home. It looks slightly different than the other GBA consolizers that I have. I'm not entirely sure of the differences here, so I'm very curious to put it through the test. But again, thank you very much, guys. This is very cool. As you guys know, I'm going for a complete US PSP game collection, and they had a couple titles there that I didn't have yet. Def Jam Fight for New York, The Takeover, is one of the more kind of collectible PSP games that are out there. You know, most PSP games cost anywhere from 20 to 30 bucks, sometimes cheaper. This one definitely goes for much more than that. So I actually paid $80 for it, which I do believe is a fair price. And then check this out. This is Iron Maiden's Ed Hunter. So this is such a wild release. So this is an official Iron Maiden release. And essentially what it is, it's two things. It is a kind of like a top 20 best of compilation. So in there are 3 discs. The first disc has, I think, 14 songs on it. The second disc is split. So it has 6 Iron Maiden songs in audio format. And then it has the installation for the PC game. Now, I believe this came out in 1999 for the PC, and I've never played it, but they had a copy there, and I had to pick it up. Speaking of Iron Maiden and music, a fan came up to me on the floor. Unfortunately, I don't remember your name because it was absolute chaos, but he handed me a bunch of CD singles right here, so I thought that was pretty neat. I picked up these 2 shooters. So the first one there is Stormwind, that is on the Dreamcast. Recently, I've been wanting to play that because Reggie picked up the newer Switch version. And then check out that Genesis game. So that is called Space Turtle Ship, and it is a Korea exclusive game. It only came out in Korea, and it's a shooter. So they had it at the expo. I had to pick it up. You guys know me, I love my big box PC games, and so there were a bunch of them at this expo, actually, more than I expected to see. There was actually one table specifically that just had a ton of them, so I was like, yes, 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 yes. And so you see a bunch of random games here, and you know, some of these are for the Atari 400/800 on cassette, some of them are for the Commodore 64. And all of them were games I did not have in the collection, so this was like a very big win for me. I was very excited. Several vendors on the floor were promoting their new retro-themed magazines, and you see one of them here. And this is kind of the perfect place for these publishers to get new subscribers. This is their audience, and so this was just their latest magazine. I thought I'd show it off here. So if you're interested, definitely check it out. And then check this out, I met Kevin Bayless. He is an original artist that used to work at Rare. He did the artwork for Battletoads as well as Diddy Kong Racing and a ton more. He's also working on a new game called Salamandos. You see the t-shirt that I got for that game right here. Just a super nice dude. He gave me this original piece of artwork here that he made, and yeah, I loved hanging with him and also his friends, so that was definitely a good time. And so that's my trip to Milwaukee, Wisconsin for the 2022 Midwest Gaming Classic Expo. And as you guys can see, I had a great time. I always do. I mean, what's not to love here, right? It's video games, it's music, it's meeting people, it's travel. It's so good. And again, I want to give a huge shout out to Chris and his YouTube channel, Game Dad Show. Definitely check it out. He is an awesome guy. I had so much fun hanging out with that dude. And also, I want to thank everybody who came up and fist bumped me, shook my hand, took a photo with me. Man, I could feel the love. You guys were so excited for me and my friends to be there, and I felt very welcome. I had a fantastic time at your expo and in your city. And I would definitely come back to this expo anytime that they ask. And so thank you very much, guys, for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.